to the Stand Up Angler, and my daddy's the host.
All right, well, special thanks to my sweetheart for the introduction, and welcome to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. I'm Rick Crawford, angler, sustainability consultant, and founder of Emerger Strategies. This season, we're launching the Sustainability Blueprint, a deep dive into how fishing and outdoor brands can grow, meet retailer demands, navigate emerging regulations, and protect the places we all love. If you're part of the fishing and outdoor industry, this is your roadmap to surviving and thriving in a changing world. Let's build better brands and protect what we love together. Today on The Sustainable Angler, I'm joined by Jesse Lance Robbins. Jesse is an angler, writer, conservationist, and fly fishing industry veteran who now serves as the major gifts officer with Trout Unlimited. He has also recently published The Best Fly Fishing is Everywhere: Stories and Celebration of Why We Fish. In this episode, we talk about the importance of dam removals, how storytelling is a tool for fly fishing education and conservation advocacy, and Jesse shares some misadventures from New Zealand, the Pacific Northwest, and Florida from his new book. If you're a fly angler, I highly recommend picking up a copy of The Best Fly Fishing is Everywhere. Hope you enjoy. And before we dive into the interview, I just want to say thank you. I'm truly grateful that you take the time to listen to this podcast. I hope these conversations inspire you to take action for nature. If you're enjoying the show, a quick free way to support it is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. The Sustainable Angler is available anywhere you listen to podcasts and is also airing Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Charleston's first and only community-supported radio station, OM Radio, 96.3 FM. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies, Ecolytics, and a New Earth Project, the sustainability initiative of Atlantic Packaging. Hey everybody, Rick Crawford here. If you're running a fishing or outdoor brand, you probably got into this business for the freedom, a desire to work in an industry that you actually care about, and to protect what you love, not wrestle with sustainability scorecards and compliance regulations. But here's the truth. Retailers and regulators are paying close attention, and the brands that can answer clearly are the ones that keep their products on the shelf. That's where Emerger Strategies comes in. We help brands get retailer and regulator ready, and we help you make the business case for sustainability, so compliance strengthens your brand instead of slowing it down. That's why I built the Compliance Ready Brand Blueprint. It's a clear, practical roadmap that shows you what matters, what's coming, and gets your sustainability house in order in 30 days. If you want to protect your brand, your margins, and what you love, you'll find the blueprint at emergerstrategies.com. If you're running a fishing, outdoor, food, or apparel brand, sustainability isn't just marketing. It's directly tied to the landscapes, waterways, and communities your business depends on. But actually tracking and improving your impact can get complicated fast. Ecolytics is a software platform that helps values-driven companies measure and manage their environmental and social impact all in one place. Ecolytics helps replace scattered spreadsheets with a clear system for tracking things like emissions, sourcing practices, and social impact, so you know where you stand and what to improve next. They specialize in helping companies pursue B Corp certification, one of the most rigorous and respected standards for business sustainability. What I appreciate is that Ecolytics works hand in hand with sustainability consultants, including folks like me. That means companies get expert guidance and a platform that keeps the work organized, credible, and audit ready. Whether you're exploring B Corp certification or just getting started with sustainability as a business, Ecolytics turns your good intentions into measurable action. To learn more, visit ecolytics.io. That's ECOLYTICS.io. And mention the Sustainable Angler podcast to get a discount on your first year subscription. Thanks to Ecolytics for supporting the show and for supporting businesses that protect the places we love.
My pleasure. Thanks for being willing to chat and connecting, Rick.
Absolutely. So, Jesse, I know that I am in the midst of reading your book, The Best Fly Fishing is Everywhere, which is such a good read, a fun read. We were talking just a minute ago. It's nice to get taken to some places through your writing, which is awesome. And I know we're going to cover the book here, but wanted to get things kicked off. If you could just introduce yourself and tell folks how you've got quite a history within fly fishing. So would love to hear your story of how you got started in writing and in the fly fishing industry and what you're up to today.
Sure. Well, I grew up in mid-coast Maine, which is a fairly rural part, but coastal as well. So grew up as an only child with parents who loved the outdoors. And so my father and his father and uncles were fly fishermen, and so I learned to fish from my father and his buddies. But my mom loves camping and hiking and canoeing, so it seems like we were always doing something outside in the summers, which was great. There was or is a little trout stream behind my parents' house in the woods, which I spent a lot of time crashing around in as a kid. So yeah, just kind of always grew up loving the outdoors, and because it was a pretty rural place, I found myself entertaining myself in the outdoors or in the woods or in the river a lot as a kid. Eventually ended up getting a job at the local outdoor store, which had a fly shop as well, and so that was in high school. And I guess you could say maybe that was my first foray into the fly fishing industry, but met, as most fly shops do, there's some legends, local legends there. And so met this really great mentor, this guy named Paul McGurran, who is the manager there, and also met another good fishing buddy who worked on the sales floor with me. So that was just impactful kind of few years working at that shop. Shop's called Maine Sport. Actually just celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, I saw.
Really? I was going to ask if they were still in business, and I read there is a great story in the book, which we'll get into in a little bit, but about your sales floor buddy on a rough camping adventure, camping and fishing adventure. But all right, so you got started working in an outdoor store, fly shop. But then what happened next after you graduate high school, and where'd you go then?
Yeah, I went to a small liberal arts school in Maine called Bates College, and I got a degree in economics, but with an environmental focus. And so got really lucky, time and place, with an advisor who had received some funding to do some research around the Kennebec River, and specifically taking a look at the economic benefits and economic changes to the river resulting from the removal of Edwards Dam, which is in 1999. So yeah, I feel very fortunate to kind of be in that place at that time. And Lynn Lewis is her name. She's a friend still, as you can imagine. And so I looked at the economic benefits relating to the river from the recreational fishery post dam removal. So like that Edwards Dam was, at the time, we say it feels like we say it every few years now, but the largest dam removal project in the country. And so that kind of kick-started in some ways this dam removal revolution. And I got to write my thesis around that, which was great.
What were there any highlights or tidbits from the study that you did that stand out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the short of it is that people were spending more money to go fish there, which was a great result from the dam removal. I mean, that's what you would hope. There was a study done by another gentleman whose name I'm blanking on before the dam was removed before the dam was removed to take a look at what people were spending on their trips to the river. And so my study was able to compare the results pre-dam removal and post-dam removal.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
was it a significant economic
Yeah,
impact in the right
exactly.
direction? Yeah.
Yeah, it was for sure. So that was really cool to see. I mean, that was what we were hoping to find, and we did. But what was also really cool in that study or in that research was we got a lot of qualitative responses, like people just sending letters back. I mean, I remember one specifically was just a guy talking about how before the dam was removed, he would never even consider swimming in the river. And then afterwards, he talked about his kids and grandparents swimming, like he lived on the river and talking about swimming in it. And he was talking about eagles and deer and just the wildlife. So that was really cool to hear. I mean, that stuff is obviously really hard to measure, but is valuable data for sure.
Yeah. No, I love that, right? And it's like the river coming back to life and
Exactly.
I'm sure I assume the fishing got better if there's other critters coming into the area too. So that's super cool.
Yeah, exactly. And as you may know, there was recently a removal or an agreement, I think last fall, to remove four more dams on the Kennebec. So there's a small population of Atlantic salmon in the Kennebec still, and so that's a big impetus and motivation for the Kennebec specifically. But anyway.
Wow. And so, yeah, I've not fished for Atlantic salmon, but my general understanding is that their um, habitat is shrinking. And so having those dams removed, I assume is good for the Atlantic salmon.
Totally, yeah. Like probably all these anadromous species, there's oftentimes really strong habitat upstream, like in the headwaters and in these tributaries, and that's the case with the Kennebec. In this one tributary called the Sandy, there's some great spawning habitat, and so yeah, the goal is to just get those fish up there as easily and as quickly as possible.
It's cool. All right. And then I know that in the book you had mentioned that you guided for a little while and then you ended up in the Pacific Northwest. Can you walk me
Yeah.
through that
So
transition?
after college, I took the only job that was offered to me, which, believe it or not, was as an actuarial analyst. So I'm a left brain numbers kind of guy. So I did that, took that job, but that job led me to some time at LL Bean, which
Okay.
was really nice, kind of as a first step, maybe professionally into the outdoor industry, fly fishing world. So I was at LL Bean for a few years and then saved up some money and left LL Bean, went to New Zealand for an extended holiday, came back to the States, and all I knew was that I wanted to be in a place that was really easy to be on the water. And so started looking out west at guest ranches and guiding gigs and things like that. And ended up at this ranch in southwest Colorado called the 4UR, which had a little creek on the property that also flowed into the Rio Grande. So we did walk and wade trips out there. And I did that for 2 seasons. And again, as you know, in these sorts of situations, you just meet people who are so like-minded, and yeah, the inspiration and the fires burning hot. So by that point, I was all in on the industry, and I just couldn't get enough of it. So decided I wanted to stay out west. And at one point, I went on Craigslist for Denver, Portland, and Seattle, and just went to all jobs and typed in fishing. And lo and behold, this job at Farbank, so the umbrella company for Sage, Reddington, Rio, and now Flywater Travel, popped up. And yeah, long story short, ended up getting that job and moving to Bainbridge Island in Washington.
Well, in some ways, I didn't do anything as cool as an extended stay in New Zealand, but working at a guest ranch is how I got out west. At this place called A, which was in Encampment, Wyoming.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah. There's a whole like culture around these guest ranches that I wasn't really privy to until I got out there.
I had absolutely no idea, but my roommate was one of the walk and wade guides, and he taught me how to fly fish. So it was
Oh,
like
right. Okay. Yeah.
just unbelievable. It's a cool, I don't know what you call it, culture or whatever it is, but these guest ranches are out there, and it's awesome. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
my little tidbit. But
They're super fun. And like the head guide at my ranch is one of my closest friends today. I mean, he was just a groomsman in our wedding. But he's a guide now in Florida. And so he and I
wow,
cross paths a couple of times a year and get to fish. I mean, he's in the book, frankly.
yeah,
Andy Lee is his name, who maybe I'm sure you have mutual friends with. Um, I was going to say those guest ranches. I mean, it's such a bubble of a
yeah, yeah,
world, right? I mean, it's not
yeah,
real life, right? And
yeah.
we always joke that it would make just such a great reality TV show.
That would be incredible, and maybe a little scary. We had all of us were in these separate like barn area. We were like in bunk beds, and it was kind of like going to college,
Totally.
like
Yeah.
living in a dorm. It was fun.
Yeah. Our ranch manager was this great guy, Aaron Christensen, and he was a D1 college athlete and like definitely like a strong personality. But first day we got there, he was like, I don't care what you guys do at night, but if you're late to work, I'm going to dump a bucket of creek water on you in your bed. And he proved that point a few times. But we were also free to, I mean, just that work hard, play hard
Yeah,
was just embraced by everyone. It was really fun.
yeah, absolutely. I can totally relate. Okay, so you end up in Seattle area or Bainbridge Island working
Hmm.
at Farbank. And what happens next on your journey?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there are these moments in fly fishing, certainly, but any probably passion or practice where you just take these leaps of understanding and, yeah, your mind is just open to new stuff. You meet people and you just take a big leap of learning. One of those was when I went to New Zealand. Another one was when I started guiding. And then another big one was when I got to Farbank. I mean, just the wealth of knowledge about fly fishing and casting and gear and product development and the industry was just unbelievable there. And so I got really fortunate to meet and work with some um, just fantastic and super knowledgeable people. So when I got there, I worked in the product development department for about 5 years. I'm not an engineer, obviously, but I worked with the team of designers and engineers, and so like I was essentially the product line manager, helping to decide what we brought to market and when, and that was awesome. And got to travel a bunch, visit a bunch of retailers and guides, and experience a variety of fisheries. And yeah, because you got to test the products and you got to know what problems you're solving with the products.
Yeah, so
Uh,
you got you that's the dream. You got paid to fish.
I like to say it's a dream
Yeah,
because it's definitely it's and I don't mean that to put it down, but
yeah.
there's you definitely get paid to fish when you work in the fly fishing industry, but I wouldn't say that you fish necessarily more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, agreed.
so for what that's worth.
Yeah. Um, all right. So then, what are you, so we're going to get into the book in a minute, but also want to touch on where you are today, because I know that
Yeah.
do really important work with Trout Unlimited, right?
Yeah. So I moved around at Farbank in a few different roles. And in following ended up in a few different places. I lived out in Bozeman for a summer, was in Idaho Falls for a summer, which is where the Rio fly lines are made, and eventually ended up in Southern Oregon where the Flywater Travel office is. And so all told, Oh, and then also did a stint back in New England as like an in-house sales rep, so territory manager. So all told, I was at Farbank for about 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And by that point, um, when I started at Farbank, I was probably 90% interested in like tackle and just the industry part of it,
Yeah.
and 10% interested in like conservation and fisheries, and obviously had a little background from college. But over the course of that decade, I would say those ratios just totally flipped. And by the end of the that time, I was just so much becoming increasingly interested and wanted to contribute to the conservation side of things, and had sat on a couple boards and steering committees in that time, and was just getting more up to speed with what working in conservation might look like. Um, Throughout that whole time, I was writing too, and so trying to think through after college. That, so I got out of college in '06, and so like that was when the time of blogs were really
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
becoming popular, and some blogs that don't exist anymore I was following daily, and so we had a group of alumni from Bates that all went in on this one blog, and that was really kind of a first formal establishing writing as a practice. When I went to New Zealand and was guiding, I had a blog and journal that I would keep up. And eventually, I think right around when I started at Farbanks, started submitting pieces to some magazines, and was fortunate to get a couple published and got connected with the editors. And so that whole time I was at Farbank was also writing short stories and essays.
Cool. And and so specifically with the work, so you transitioned into more writing and conservation work, and with Trout Unlimited, um, which love Trout Unlimited. I love that there's the advocacy component of what TU does. Um, the amount, I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean, the amount of river miles that have been restored and habitat restored through TU is astronomical to me. And so what are you doing to help support their mission, and what's your role there today?
Yeah. So it took a lot longer than I hoped, which was sobering, but eventually made a transition to the nonprofit world. And I'm not a scientist or an engineer or a policy expert. So it felt like, given my background, really the places that I could plug in were either what in the nonprofit world are called communications and development or fundraising. Excuse me. So, given my sort of marketing and sales background, landed in fundraising. So today my title officially is Major Gifts Officer. So I work with individual donors and help connect them with the work that's being done to protect the places that they love. I have an easy job compared to the folks who are like on the ground or in state capitals or at the Capitol. And it's really my job to kind of quarterback the donor to the work that they're most interested about and what they're passionate about, or help them understand what work's being done or what work could be done.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, it's so like the gap in, I don't have stats on this. I just know that there is a huge gap in conservation funding and the work that actually needs to be done. So getting these donations and these major gifts is helping to fund and support the important work that T is doing across the board, I assume, with.
Exactly. Yeah. There's obviously there's a lot of public money and grants and things like that from states and government, or the government, which is great. But any conservation project also requires private funding, more flexible funding, to support staff time and I mean, all these conservation projects, they're long games, right? Like any campaign will be 5 to 10 years or more. And so having consistent funding and support from private donors is absolutely imperative, and those people also become really strong advocates for the work and for the organization, and for just the conservation movement or sustainability movement in general.
Yeah, and I would say too for listeners out there, like I mean, I personally think the most important thing that anyone can do to protect a resource is to get involved on the advocacy side of things. I mean, it's just where change happens, and like so I've always admired TU for the work that they do, but that advocacy component is really critical, and I'm curious to get your take on what are some of the priorities or things that TU is working on, and if there's any major donors out there who want to support, like where is that, how is that money being used, or can they target, hey, we want to work in specific areas, or how does that work?
Yeah. Well, a few things there. One, to your first point about advocacy, I mean, I agree with you 100%. And in terms of getting involved in conservation, the easiest thing you can do is lend your voice, right? And that doesn't take money. And it takes, in some cases, very little time, but can also be really powerful. I mean, I'm sure you've been watching what's been happening with the attacks on public lands, right? And just the response from the hunting and angling community has been tremendous, and that's truly impactful for making sure that those public lands stay in public hands, right? So that's a really great way to get involved. And any nonprofit that you find, national or local, will have action alerts or things ways to get involved, and they're often just doing what we're talking about, lending your voice. In terms of TU, so we're a national organization. We do have an office in Arlington, just outside of DC, but we have about 350 staff now spread across the country, which is yeah, we're big. We've been around since 1959. But of that 350, there's only about 25 that are actually in DC, which means that we all work in the places in the communities where the work is being done. So we're spread across the whole country, from DC to Washington State. I'm in Eugene, Oregon, so my focus is on the Pacific states. So we kind of work, if you were to put our work into some big buckets, there's the restoration side of things. So that's like restoring rivers themselves that have been degraded, reconnecting floodplain habitats. We do a lot of work with what we call low-tech process-based restoration and beaver dam analogs. So that's like in the field, what we would call shovel-ready projects.
Okay.
That's a big part of our work. Dam removals fall into that for sure. There's also the advocacy, like you mentioned. So we have a whole government affairs team, which works obviously in DC, but there's state policy directors as well who are spread across the country. We have a really strong and robust science team led by this woman named Helen Neville, who's been at TU for over 20 years. Maybe you've crossed paths with her.
Yeah.
She's awesome. And her team, they are just so smart. Whenever I talk to some of them, I just feel like I'm maybe digesting or able to process a fraction of what they're working on. But it's the science informs the policy, advocacy, and and the restoration work. So it's absolutely necessary. And then the last part of TU is our engagement and education. And so that's where our huge network of state and local chapters and councils and just our grassroots membership kind of falls under that. And I think we're right around 300,000 members across the country now. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's awesome. All right. Well, look, that's amazing. If anyone's listening and you're looking for a way to, I've always found that, sometimes you feel like you're getting beat over the head with what seems like all sorts of bad stuff. And like the easiest thing to do, right, is to try and take action. So, Trout Unlimited is a great way to do that and know that your dollar is being put to work to protect the places that you love. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
We set out with a New Earth project to really start a movement.
It's a global coalition of people who are deeply concerned and want to accelerate the transition away from problematic packaging to more sustainable solutions.
Our entire value proposition was built on helping companies package things better. We were doing sustainability before sustainability was cool. We just called it packaging optimization. And packaging optimization really is about using less. And we built our whole business on that. People send us their products, their goods, and we help them design packaging systems and solutions for the least possible cost, utilizing the least amount of material. Use less is always the right answer.
And that's what I see with companies like a New Earth Project is it's like, we're just trying to create solutions for big companies and small, that makes it easier for them, cheaper for them, whatever it is, and then has less impact. Not just trying to tell people you should have less impact and making the choice forced on them. Like, make it better for everybody, and it'll make it better for the whole world.
We see the problem, and we are with you.
But on the conservation note, and to your book, which I mentioned earlier, but the best fly fishing is everywhere, stories and celebration of why we fish. What is the role of storytelling in fly fishing education and conservation that you discuss in the book through storytelling? But what is that role for you?
So, I think conservation is catalyzed by care and an emotional connection to a fish or to a place. And so, we obviously, every time we go fishing, we're making memories and we're creating our own stories. And we talked about science before. So data and science and research is great, and you need that. It's imperative. But there's oftentimes not a strong emotional connection to the numbers or to the science. Whereas a memory or a story or a shared experience, that's where the emotional connection comes in. And so if we can, when we make those emotional connections, that's where the connection to the work takes place. So if we can connect our own experience and make that realization that it's because of that place or because of that fish or that ecosystem, that's where I think a story can catalyze an interest and then ultimately protection. And whether that's through any number of ways, right? Like the advocacy or volunteering or sharing your time or donating money. I think it's the story and the emotional connection catalyzes the work.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, so the world, so I'm a sustainability nerd. So I'm looking at companies' data and all this stuff and putting metrics behind some of the work that they're doing. But if that doesn't translate into a story that resonates, it's just data points. There's no strong connection. And I love that you bring that up, right? It's that connection to the place or that fish or that memory that is ultimately what motivates, I feel like, someone to take action.
Yeah. There's it's a popular book, Braiding Sweetgrass. Did you read that?
I did. Yeah. Love that.
there's so many awesome nuggets in there, but one that really struck with me, and I use this quote in the book. It's like she says, um, I'll paraphrase a little bit, but what if the Earth loves us back? And that framing where it's sort of like, oh, this is a reciprocal symbiotic relationship where the care is going back and forth. That for me, like a light bulb went off, really. Because if we think about how much enjoyment and fun and memories and like relationships we've had with other people on the water, right? Like you could you could say that the water or the fish, I mean, that's what they've given us, truly. And so making that realization, I think, inspires us to want to give back to them, so that those places exist, so that other people can find that enjoyment as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good way to think about it. With the it being reciprocal. Um, so, I mean, we touched on this, but is there, this relationship between people and places that deepen our motivation to protect and advocate? I think that you can't expect anyone to really do much of anything unless they love it, right? I mean, and I feel like that's what the stories in your book do so well is like, I mean, I love traveling. I love fishing. Fishing and traveling is the best case scenario. And so like in reading this book, right, it also took me to places like I've never been steelheading, but like reading a story about it, I at least feel like I've been there in my mind, so I know. So I guess I'm open to even learning more about those places and wanting to protect them.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have experienced through your own traveling and writing and all that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like, I haven't ever lived in the South or the Southeast, but I've got to fish there a little bit. And I think it's always it's really interesting, I think, when you do visit a place or start to learn about a place, and you can, like, if you find those nonprofits or those groups who are working in the place, and even just like reading their websites, like what they do, what the issues are, what the problems are, I think that's a great way to even get started. Like, yeah, so if like you read a story about steelheading or you went steelheading, then you could go on to like a local watershed group or a local state org, and like it's just another way to make a relationship with that place. My wife is really good at, like, we went to Hawaii a couple years ago, and coming back home, like my wife's on the websites of the nonprofits that are there, and whether it's community or environment or whatever, but it's just an interesting another way to connect and learn about the place, whether you fish there or not. I've really taken that to heart in terms of the places we get to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the stories. So I just got back from a tarpon trip, and I'm obsessed with them. Those fish,
Yeah.
they have gotten a hold of me, and they're my current obsession. But I was stoked to see that you've fished with Bree and Wilds, who are friends of mine, and they live here in the Charleston area. Tell tell us a little bit about that little trip down there, and
Oh man.
yeah.
Well, that was all comes back to that ranch. So Andy Lee, who was the head guide at the ranch that I worked at, he lives down in Florida now and fishes around the Everglades. And I forget. Oh, so he was working with the Sage folks, as was Bree, for a while, and they ended up on a trip together and became friends. And I think at some point Bree was like, "Oh, you got to meet my husband at some point." And so Bree and Wilds and Andy started fishing together, and then Andy connected us all on his boat, and yeah, that's kind of how we all got connected. But the story. about that first trip together. There's a lot that goes on, but and obviously there's tarpon involved, which is great. But really, it's about worlds colliding, and how if we trust our friends and our close people, then they can help connect us with other people that become meaningful to us in our lives. And as you probably saw, Bree ended up doing the interior artwork for the book. There's some illustrations in there, graphic work that she did, which was awesome. So it's been really fun to collaborate with both of them. And they're really inspiring, Bree and Wilds, just in a variety of ways, but also just approach and way to live life, right? I mean, they're both successful entrepreneurs and have a really unique and thoughtful way of approaching work and the world. And I've been able to definitely glean a lot from them. They're actually in Oregon right now. So we're going to cross paths next week.
Oh, good. Well, you gotta tell them I said hello, and
totally.
that they're getting a shout out and on the potty. But yeah, it's so I met them. Well, I knew them, but I got to fish with them in Mexico one time. And to your point, like about worlds colliding, like that's another thing that fishing does. It's like unbelievable. Like you meet other kindred souls and you're like immediately bonded. And then if you're on the same boat, in your case, in the story, and you hook up with a tarpon and the whole boat's cheering you on, and it's like that shared experience, like you can't get that in many other ways or experiences, or at least from my experience.
The shared experience, like that's really those are the most meaningful, memorable things that we can do. I've had some, fishing is obviously like our sort of chosen lens or path. But I think anything where you can get outdoors in a place that's inspiring in and of itself, and then include that with some people who can be introspective and thoughtful, like, it's a formula for something great.
All right. And then I gotta touch on another, well, every chapter is its own story, and I love the format of this because I have 2 young kids. So I was at the beach last weekend, and I was able to like read a chapter and not have to like dedicate half an hour. I could read a quick chapter, play with the kids and all that. But one of the stories that I read that now I'm a little bit kind of like obsessing on is the New Zealand hut situation, which I didn't even know that was a thing. What is that all about?
So in New Zealand, there's this hut system, and a hut is basically a little cabin in the woods. And these huts, the whole system is managed by I think it's the Department of Conservation, DOC, but they are just peppered across both islands. I mean, there's thousands of these things. And it's pay to play, first come, first serve. I don't know what the rate to stay at a night, but when I was there, you could buy just an annual pass, which like a ski pass. And so you just show up. I mean, not once did I ever not get a bed. So the great thing about these huts is they're all on trails, obviously. They're all hiking, and they all have like twin mattresses there, and some sort of running water, like a water source. So from a backpacking standpoint, you don't have to carry water, and you don't have to carry a sleeping pad. So they're really handy for getting around in the backcountry. And as you might imagine, a lot of them are on trout rivers. So when I first heard about it, I was just like, it sounds too good to be true, right? Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Especially for growing up, going to camps and cabins and cottages across Maine. Like, they're all unique, and they all have tons of character. Some excuse me, are really, really nice and new. Others have been around for decades and could definitely stand some improvements, but it just adds to the story, right? So yeah, there. Yeah, once I kind of learned about that, it was just like you could just open up the map or the atlas and find a hut and look at the river. So what we ended up doing was cross-referencing between this, like a road map that had the major road systems, and then this atlas that had the huts, and then this kind of semi-famous book, just John Kent's South Island Trout Fishing Guide, and we would just cross-reference, be like, oh, here's a hut on a river. What's going on with that river? Oh yeah, there's trout in it. Okay, how do you get there? And then you're gone.
That's unbelievable. When I lived in Wyoming before I left, me and my buddy, we did like a 2-week fishing trip. It was supposed to be 7 days. We extended it for another 7 days because it was the fishing was good. But it's like it reminded me of just that sense of adventure and just being like, we're sitting there. I didn't have a smartphone at this, but it's like same thing, right? You're looking at a map. You're like, okay, here's a campsite. It's near this river, but these are actually cabins, which was just like, that would have been nice. Instead of setting up camp every night and
Totally
doing that whole thing. So yeah, now you've gotten me obsessed with that. So that'll probably be.
Well, for where you're at, like, obviously the Southeast, I mean, you're doing a lot of sight fishing, right? So that's the other thing about New Zealand. It's like, the fishing itself is just mind blowing because, the trout are really big and you're sight fishing to them. So the game is really, really fun and hard and challenging, similar to like standing on the front of a skiff in that sense.
Yeah, it's my favorite way. I mean, sight casting to a fish is just,
Yeah.
there's just nothing like it. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so we talked a little bit about dam removals earlier, on the Kennebec River, but I am curious about what's happening now in your neck of the woods with dam removals and how that work that you're doing with TU and all that. Like, how is that sort of all? What's happening out there, basically?
Sure. Yeah. Well, like I said before, it kind of seems like every, I don't know, 3 to 5 years or something, we hear like the largest dam removal project in history, right? And so the most recent one that people probably heard about are the Klamath River dams. And so 2 summers ago, those 4 dams came out, and the response from the fish was like immediate and has been incredible. So I think just, and by that I mean they found king salmon above the dam sites. Like, I think it was within or shortly after a month after the dam came out, which is
Unbelievable.
incredible to think, right? Like, a fish hasn't been up in there for decades, and it just knows where to go. So that those upper Klamath River dams, what was cool about that one is that, so Trout Unlimited has an office over in Klamath Falls, which is kind of in the upper Klamath Basin. And we had been doing a lot of restoration work on these tributaries to the Klamath for many years. And so to be able to, once the dams came out, that those fish were able to get into those smaller tributaries and spawning creeks and things where we had done work before. And then the work was kind of waiting for them to use. And that's not to say we were the only group by any means working on those. There's a lot of partners in that for sure. So that's probably the most recent one that's made. There's been some great articles all across, I mean, even in the New York Times and across the country. There's a project underway right now on the Eel River, Northern California, to take out a couple of dams there. And then another one that we're more on the front end of in terms of the timeline is this dam in like north central Washington called Enlow Dam. And that one's really interesting because so it would open up habitat, obviously, for anadromous fish, steelhead, and salmon. But Another way to think about any conservation project is like the bang for the buck, and like the prioritization. And so with that dam, we would take out one dam, and I think there's 14 or 1,500 miles of habitat beyond it, right? So whereas the Klamath, obviously, it's a huge system, and the fish were there, and but in terms of miles reconnected, this Enlow Dam will by far trump that one. So that's a cool project that in campaign we're just getting started on.
So earlier you mentioned that like when you first started, like 90% of your interest was primarily the fishing and 10% was conservation related. So
Yeah.
you went from like fly shop, working for brands, doing some guiding, to working at TU. Like what was it? Like what was the spark or whatever that said like, hang on, we need to flip the script on this, and I really need to be focusing more on the conservation side of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I don't remember like a specific moment, but I don't know. It was unconscious in the sense that I had always been a member of TU, and so was reading their magazine, and obviously followed them and on social media and got their newsletters and things like that. But just started reading more and more of the stuff, and started following other nonprofits. And I would also say that I was inspired by a lot of people in the industry, fly fishing industry, and other writers who were working more in conservation than I was. And that's just like you could find a fishing mentor or a casting mentor, you can find an environmentalism mentor as well. We're what's the phrase? We're standing on the shoulders of giants in all of this work, right?
Yep.
And so that was there. I don't remember a specific moment, but when I moved to Southern Oregon, it was really, I noticed that the conservation element was really just ingrained in that community there, and the Flywater travel team and the staff there, and just that community, the outdoor community. There wasn't a line between like the work and play when it came to the for-profit and the nonprofit side of things. It was just kind of all one. So
Who were you mentioned mentors and people that inspired you, and maybe who were some of those people that because it sounds like Trout Unlimited did its job on the education piece because it got you informed, that got you interested, right? And
yeah.
like I'm just curious if maybe who some of those people were.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to that fly shop I worked as in high school, that guy Paul McGurran, who was the manager, he was always super involved in the local TU chapter. So I think maybe subconsciously there was a seed planted there, which I'm grateful for. But thinking more recently, a couple writers come to mind, Dylan Tamina and River Horace Nakadate. I know you've chatted probably maybe with both of those guys, but there's just an environmentalism and conservation element to their writing that's inherent, and it is just kind of one and the same. And I've been fortunate to meet those guys and spend some time with them and work with them in various ways. And so, at some point, you start to like emulate the people you look up to, and they inspire a change in you. I would also say like the folks that I get to work with today at TU, both like I'm every single day blown away by the staff and just their expertise and their passion, because these are long campaigns, long games, and it's a lot of defense as opposed to offense, right? And so it's there's a mental game to it or mental element that's really challenging. And similarly, the folks, the donors and the supporters and the philanthropists, it's really humbling to get to work with them and learn their stories and how, like, what catalyzed them to give to conservation and work with TU and other organizations. So there's no inspiration is abound. There's no shortage of it for sure.
I love that. Well, speaking of stories and inspiration, and writing, in your case, and these other writers, um, would you be willing to share an excerpt from your book, so
Yeah.
folks out there listening might be inspired to to buy the book?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I'm looking at my notes here. What I thought. Let me think. Okay. Um, let's go. All right. Let's see if I can find this one.
And just take your time, because I'll edit this
Okay.
stuff out. So
Yeah.
find the right one.
Do you have a preference on where we go or what we fish for?
I love that. Yeah, what we fish for. No, whatever feels good to you.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna do one a steelheading story here, and yeah, this one's called. You maybe not haven't gotten to this one yet if you're 3/4 of the way through, but this one's called Even Bigger. Let's see, where is this? Okay. All right. Even Bigger. It was our 5th day of 8 on the river. That wild, mighty, spectacular, and famous river. The one that makes you feel utterly insignificant and that breaks your heart to leave. The one with the falls and the summer-run steelhead as big as winters. British Columbia's incomparable Dean River. I lucked out and was offered the remaining spot on a do-it-yourself camp trip with 3 others, 2 of which I hadn't met in person until we started loading up the cargo baskets on the chopper. One I hadn't even communicated with before arriving at the hangar. But after 4 15-hour days of fishing, it was as if we had all grown up together. By the 5th day, everyone had landed a few fish, so we were relaxed and building some confidence in the water and our approaches. We were also ready to start exploring, so early that morning, 2 of us, Jack and I, took off on foot upstream on an old logging road that follows the river. With us, we brought one of the small inflatable rafts that we'd flown in, planning to float and fish our way back to camp over the course of the day. When the road dead-ended upstream a few miles, the water we found there was the best we'd seen all trip, which was hard to believe given how much good water was downstream. Maybe we were just that excited by more amazing water. A giant gravel bar system lay before us with several braids of varying size meandering through. Each braid looked to have 2 or 3 runs worth fishing. A 1/4 mile downstream, the braids all converged and then split again into two, a large mid-river island separating the 2 channels. The majority of the flow went around the left side of the island, and even from our distance, we could tell a beautiful run was there. Knowing more water we couldn't see was still downstream, plus the fact we had 2 more days to fish, we decided to float down to the island and start there. Reaching the head of the island, Jack and I stashed the raft and then climbed up a colossal log jam to get a better view of things. From the top, we stared down the length of a massive, classic riffle run tail out. The bucket itself looked as long as a football field. I won the Rochambeau and almost felt guilty about it. Almost. Making my way down the run, I fished carefully. Each swing felt better than the previous, and I became certain that I was going to get one on every cast. The further downstream I stepped, the more my focus narrowed and my pulse quickened. Eventually, I was getting close to the end of it and started judging how many more casts I had left. If it doesn't happen now, then when? I looked upstream, hoping to see Jack hooked up, thinking maybe I'd just missed the fish. As I came into the tail out, one swing slowly came across and into tension. It was an odd feeling, kind of like my fly had swung directly into a big submerged tree. I raised my rod slowly, and the tension remained, but gave slightly. I started reeling in, thinking that this big branch I'd snagged was now coming up from the bottom of the river. "Is that a fish?" Jack yelled from upstream. I shook my head, but I wasn't sure. Kept reeling, the tension held, and my rod flexed deeper. Then a distinct head shake, and another. I shouted something incoherent, then heard Jack start crashing downstream toward me. The way it fought, I thought it was a Chinook. It never made a long, fast run, but constantly bulldogged me, barely giving an inch at a time. Slowly, with encouragement from Jack and as much side pressure as I dared, we brought the fish into the shallows. There it rolled, and we got our first look at the giant wild buck. After 6 nerve-wracking rounds of fighting the fish to hand, barely get a finger on it, followed by the fish confidently and steadily running back to the bottom of the middle of the river, we had him. My hand barely fit around the base of its tail. Only 5 miles from the ocean, the buck was tinted as if by watercolors. Down its body, green faded to pink and then silver. The pink stripe led to bold, cherry cheeks. It was most likely the largest steelhead I will ever hold in my hands. In awe, we stared, unblinking, and then watched as he disappeared back into the aquamarine of that wild, mighty, spectacular, and famous river. Then, to my surprise, instead of jumping right back in the run in hopes of hooking his own, Jack sat down on a log next to me to talk about how it all had happened. "What do you do after you land a fish like that?" we asked each other. "We go fishing in distant destinations for the fish. We want the challenge of finding them, hooking them, and bringing them to hand. We want to witness them ourselves, behold their beauty, and see how big they can get. But in the process of pursuing our intentions, an encounter with the fish we imagine, we find that the fish become secondary to the unexpected encounters we find along the way, like new friends, surprising conversations, little epiphanies, and big shared moments. I've since landed large and meaningful fish in other faraway places that felt similarly, and I now think that the answer to our question, what do you do after you land a fish like that, is this: you watch your friend fish and hope like hell that they get one even bigger."
Love that. Love it. And absolutely. That's absolutely, everything about that is what do you do after that? Yeah, you do hope that your friend catches the next one. And all part of that experience is the culmination of all of that comes together. And now you've got friends, you've seen a beautiful place. And now as me, the reader who's never even experienced that, I'm now connected with that fish. And it's, I think that is how storytelling can help save some of these fish and some of these places that we love. I love that. Well, Jesse, this was awesome. I loved hearing your story and reading your stories. Where can people pick up a copy of this book?
Yeah, the book's it's at fly shops and independent bookstores across the country right now. You can find it online too, but I always like to support those independent-owned retailers, so I would definitely steer people that way. If you need some links, you can get them on through my website, which is jesselancerobbins.com. So,
awesome. Well, Jesse, this has been super fun, and I really appreciate you taking the time and to do the interview. And thank you for sharing all these stories. That, if you fly fish, you're gonna love this book. I mean, I can just tell you that it's really really great read. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, thank you for the chat and for the work that you do as well, because it's a critical piece of the puzzle. And I'm sure you some of those independent retailers are thankful for the services and the collaboration they have with you. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to head over to emergerstrategies.com for all your sustainability consulting needs, and check out our new The Compliance Ready Brand Blueprint, which is designed to get your sustainability house in order in 30 days or less.